Greetings, and welcome back to the Gaming Movie Jerks. This is part 2 of our Cuphead Bosses Ranked series, so if you haven't seen part 1, go and watch it first. In this part, we'll be looking at some of the more difficult bosses, primarily ones from the second world, Inkwell Isle 2. Let's go ahead and get started.
At number 11, we have Beppy the Clown. Everyone ranks this boss really high, like top 5, but I totally disagree with this. We've never had much of a problem beating Beppy. He's one of the most annoying bosses, but not one of the most difficult.
His first phase is very easy. He lunges at you in his little bumper car, but there's plenty of telegraphing. Just jump and dash over him.
There are also ducks holding light bulbs going across the top of the screen. When you shoot them, or if they're right above you, they drop the light bulb, which upon contact with the ground explodes into a firebolt, dealing 2d10 damage, of course.
It's a good thing that the fire disappears immediately, because this is a circus, and it'd probably burn down pretty easily. There's no safety regulations in the 30s, after all.
The next phase is also easy.
Except for the dog balloons, those are some of the worst enemies in the whole game.
They're not hard to destroy at all, Jordan. They're just balloons, not exactly threatening. The phase also introduces the train mechanic. No, not the guy who fixes trains. Basically, during the fight, a train, or is it the roller coaster? I'm going to call it a train. The train will run through the background and then into the foreground a few minutes later.
This is a really interesting mechanic. The fact that it's well telegraphed keeps it from being annoying.
The next phase has 2 different parts. He'll jump on either a green or a yellow horse. They each behave differently, which is perfectly normal in the world of oddly colored horses.
The yellow one shoots a row of horseshoes that fall on you, usually when the train is on screen. And the green one shoots horseshoes in a wave-like motion. This is one of the worst projectiles in the entire game. When one horseshoe is at its lowest point, the other, of course, is at its highest. If the train is passing and you need to get over a passenger, it's impossible to jump high or low enough to get over them without taking a hit. Maybe there's a way around this, but I don't know it.
One thing to note here is that the train is much faster during this phase. You can easily get stuck under the horse while the train is on screen and take an unavoidable hit. Last and certainly least is the final stage, in which there are quadrographic grilling projectiles on screen at once.
In this phase, Beppy turns into a giant amusement park ride with a ton of moving platforms. Meanwhile, 6 enemies roll out into the foreground and throw baseballs at you. Thankfully, the Milk Bean Super Attack takes care of these guys fairly quickly. This comes with the added bonus of doing plenty of damage to Beppy himself.
I can see why Beppy is ranked highly on most lists, but we've just never had a problem with him. Despite everything we've said here, he's really not that bad. Definitely overrated. Up next at number 10 is Sally Stageplay. This is the first boss from Inkwell Isle 3 to appear on the list.
Sally's stageplay is kind of odd. She's really deep in World 3, but she's incredibly easy considering the rest of the bosses in World 3. Don't get me wrong though, she is tough and she's definitely annoying.
She starts off with a typical jump around the screen maneuver. Her main source of transportation other than jumping around is a ticket to ride on the eating umbrella machine. After being eaten by her umbrella, she teleports above you and attempts to crush you. This attack isn't too bad. It's a little short notice, but it's not too hard to dodge as long as you're paying attention to her and not yourself.
She can also blow a kiss at you, which is parryable and hardly a threat at all. What makes phase 1 so annoying is the fan throwing move. Sometimes she'll jump up and throw a paper fan at you.
It's easy to dodge at first, but it just hits the ground and goes full Metal Gear Solid, basically becoming a landmine.
This can be really annoying, especially when you're trying to dodge her other attacks. It just gets in the way.
Her second phase is worse. There's just too much going on in this one. There are children dropping milk bottles out of windows above you. Meanwhile, Sally is dropping toy mice out of her umbrella. These mice fall to the floor and drive to the edge of the screen, crawl up to the top, then fall right back down at you.
While all of this is happening, she still does all the things she did in the previous phase, except for the teleportation. There's just too much going on here to manage it all. This phase is nearly impossible to get through without taking a hit.
Her third phase is a bit of a break, at least. She does 3 different things here. She can throw lightning bolts, which are pretty easy to dodge. She can throw a meteor, which, when destroyed, releases a star that can be parried. This is necessary for her third and worst action, the big wave.
You have to jump, parry the star, and dash over the giant wave. It doesn't seem that bad, but if you're playing two-player like us, it's nearly impossible to get out of it without anyone taking any damage.
No, you can't duck under it. I know it looks like you can, but please, don't even try. It doesn't work.
Her last phase is the easiest, at least, though it is very stressful since you're probably only on 1 HP at this point.
She floats above you while dropping roses on you. Meanwhile, you're also dodging an umbrella that spins like a top. Now let me tell you, if I went to the theater and saw a play that didn't end with a spinning umbrella, then I'd give it an immediate 0 out of 10. But seriously, Sally's stage play is really only difficult because of her annoyance in every single phase. Only the second phase is really tough, though.
That second phase is so tough, she manages to make number 10 on this list.
Back in Inkwell Owl 2 is Wally Warbles at number 9. Wally is way, way, way harder than we anticipated. This is another plane level like Jimmy the Great and Hildeberg. We don't really care for the plane levels, though.
The key to the first phase is to just stay at the back of the screen and dodge these huge eggshells. When they reach the back of the screen, they burst into 3 separate projectiles and go diagonally in the opposite direction.
He also does this thing where his whole head turns into a finger gun and shoots 3 bullets at you. This is easy to dodge, but it doesn't make a ton of sense with the bird theme of this boss.
After he takes enough damage, he freaks out, shaking violently and throwing feathers in every direction. This isn't hard, but if you stop paying attention for even a second, you'll probably get hit pretty quickly.
In the second phase, he slips out and falls away. His son, Wally Jr. or whatever, comes in. He has these 5 eggs revolving around him, expanding and contracting in and out. I don't know what it is about this phase, but I've always thought it was really difficult. There's not really anything else to say about it, though. This is all there is to it, and it's just really hard.
However, the third phase is definitely the hardest part of the fight. Wally Warbles himself shows up again in a stretcher at the bottom of the screen. The bird EMTs carrying him throw pills at you. This isn't a very well-organized medical crew. They're ignoring Wally's literal heart attacks and his head randomly turning into a trash can. I suppose you can't complain too much. They're really only helping you by ignoring Mr. Warbles' serious medical problems, I would imagine.
So the only way to damage him here is by using your plane's secondary weapons, the bombs. This might be the only time in the whole game that the plane's secondary weapon is really useful. Overall, Wally's first 2 phases are just extremely annoying, but this last phase is incredibly difficult, and that's what puts him in the top 10 on this list. At number 8, we have Baroness Von Bonbon. She technically has 4 phases, but the first 3 are essentially the same.
Her first 3 phases consist of 3 different dessert-themed mini-bosses, chosen randomly from a pool of 5. That's right, there's RNG in this fight.
There's the Cupcake, who jumps around the screen, creating shockwaves when he lands. These shockwaves also go just a bit further than you're expecting them to, every time. The Cupcake is easily the worst one.
There's the Waffle, who also sucks. He basically just tries to fly into you, but he can be ridiculously hard to avoid, especially if you don't get him first. More on what exactly that means later. Also, the Waffle is the only one that isn't a dessert, which is kind of annoying.
There's the Candy Corn, too, who isn't that bad, actually. He flies around the perimeter of the screen, but sometimes he decides to go up or down through the middle and the sides. You can never really tell which way he's going to go when he gets to the middle of the screen, so it's best to just stay away from him.
There are 2 mini-bosses who are pretty easy. The Jawbreaker just flies around the screen, followed by this little tiny Jawbreaker. He doesn't shoot anything, he just flies in your general direction.
Finally, there's the Gumball Machine, who is really easy. He just runs back and forth, occasionally shooting gumballs out of his head, which fall down from the top of the screen.
The main thing that makes this part of the battle terrible is the randomness of it. You never know which mini-bosses you're going to get.
You can get lucky and get the Candy Corn, Jawbreaker, and Gumball Machine. Or you can get unlucky and get the Cupcake and the Waffle, along with one of their easier mini-bosses.
But it's not just which of the mini-bosses you get that matters, the order matters too. After each fight, another layer of complexity is added. After you beat the first randomly chosen mini-boss, these little guys start to walk across the bottom of the screen and you have to jump over them. This could easily put you in danger of some of the mini-bosses, like the Waffle.
You could shoot at these little guys, but they take like 1,000 hits more than they should to kill.
When you get to the third mini-boss, the Baroness herself starts to shoot at you, giving you even more stuff to dodge. All this basically means that there is an ideal order for the mini-bosses. Candy Corn, Jawbreaker, then Gumball Machine. If you don't get it in that order, the fight is much, much harder.
After you beat 3 mini-bosses, you actually get to fight the Baroness herself. Her castle grows legs and starts walking. She starts to throw her head at you, again with the head throwing. It'll pause in the air for a second, fly toward you, then pause. It'll be hard to estimate when it'll start moving again, making it difficult to dodge.
This last phase is at least more conventionally difficult, relying on your ability to dodge projectiles rather than just getting lucky about the order of the mini-bosses.
Baroness Von Bonbon doesn't usually rank super high on a lot of people's lists, but we've always had a lot of trouble with her. Not only is she ridiculously hard, she's not fun at all. Alright, that's it for part 2. Considering that I just described the number 8 boss on this list as ridiculously hard, I'll bet you think that it can't get much harder from here. But it can! You'll see in parts 3 and 4 coming soon on the Gaming Movie Jerks. See you next time.